Okay, today we're going to discuss Chapter 9, Foundations of Individual Behavior. Because in management, principles of management or management principles, we have discussed a lot about what are the functions of management. We also discussed roles that managers play. We also spoke about, say, decision making. There was plenty of discussions on organizational structure. So we've done all that part. Now we're coming down to how we handle and understand individuals in ways that are constructive for the company. We want employees who are completely engaged, who are job satisfied, and who are motivated. And we use their skills and personalities and fit them to their jobs. And of course, we want to reward them, recognize them for their effort, and keep them happy and retain talented people. That's the key. And what most people don't understand, and sometimes even human resource management department and people in the HR department do not understand, is that even with the best of technologies, even with the best of infrastructure, the key is to be able to you know recruit, motivate, develop, compensate, and retain talented people. If we do not understand the importance of individuals in an organization, I think we are in trouble, because it's employees who drive technologies, it's employees who drive change, and it's also employees who actually contribute in terms of productivity, and it's employees who handle resources or even customers, and it's again employees who make sure that organizations achieve the goals that they're setting out in terms of mission or vision or strategic or financial objectives. All that's been possible only because we have great employees to work with. And that's why understanding individual behavior is extremely important for any kind of organization, even if it's a for profit organization or if it's a philanthropic organization, a not for profit kind of organization. All these companies, and when I say companies, the managers in these companies must understand that individual employees and how they behave in teams and how we get them to fit into their jobs that they enjoy, and we leverage those skills and unique competences they bring to the workplace. I think that's the key. If we don't know how to do that, even with the best technologies, even with the best infrastructure, we're definitely not going to achieve organizational goals. So this is about individual behavior, and it's a very important chapter, I believe. So for anybody who is taking, say, further courses in School of Management, and there is a course called Management 370 called Organizational Behavior, and that completely describes what we have in this chapter, but in greater detail. This is just like a encapsulated form of a full course called Organizational Behavior, which is Management 370. So if you listen to this class, it's almost opening all the avenues that you will discover when you take the Management 370 class in the School of Management courses. So let's move to the next slide. Yeah, learning objectives for today: identify the focus and goals of organizational behavior. Now, individual behavior, behavior of individuals in teams, and how organizations are basically structured, the culture, the norms, the policies that are in place. All that becomes organizational level behavior. Then you have individual behavior, which we have attitudes, job satisfaction, personality types, perception, motivation. These are individual behaviors, and also learning. So all these elements are focused on individual behavior. And then we have group dynamics, teamwork, collaborative effects, and intergroup collaboration and cohesiveness. So these are elements of team behavior and group dynamics, behavior of individuals in teams. And then you have organizational level factors such as culture and structure, policies and procedures, which also impact how good an organization is, how efficient it is. So all these three elements: individual behavior, behavior of individuals in teams, and how individuals and teams interact with organizational elements. All those are important elements of organizational behavior. And also the second objective here, learning objective for today's class and for this chapter, is that attitudes play an important role in job performance. Now, attitudes could be several attitudes, like job satisfaction being a very important attitude. Also, commitment, the loyalty that we have for our organization, extremely important. Involvement, how much are we able to identify ourselves with the job that we are doing? That's the level of involvement that we have. Can I truly identify with the tasks and activities that I perform every day? And then we also have an interesting you know factor or element here, attitude here, which we call as engagement, the level of passion that people bring in, and the kind of connect that they have towards the organization. And that also includes, say, involvement, job satisfaction, and other attitudes. But engagement is the level. See, if you were to listen to my class and understand everything that I said, and then you can translate that at your workplace, I think that's engagement. That my students are able to take away something from this class and apply it at the workplace, or even managing your own work, or managing your families, managing your relationship with people around you, with members of your own student teams that you work with. I think that's the level of engagement. You cannot simply passively listen to a class and not take away something from the class. The level of engagement is really evidenced when you can reflect, understand what is being taught, you assimilate it, and then you can put it into practice. And that for me is engagement. So attitudes play a very important role. All these are attitudes: job satisfaction, commitment, involvement, engagement. These are all attitudes which have a bearing on job performance. And then we also discuss different personality theories just to understand who we are. We're nice people, don't worry. But we just want to understand ourselves. The more we understand personality types and how complex personalities can be in a good way, the more we appreciate the differences between individuals, and the more we are accommodating, and we are also going to be able to treat employees with the kind of respect and dignity that they deserve. And then we have other learning objectives, which are describe perception and the factors that influence it. See, reality could be something different, but the way we actually perceive the world, the way we interpret whatever we are seeing, whatever we listen, or whatever we touch and feel and sense, that kind of interpretation to our sensory inputs using our five sensory organs, the way we create our own world, is what we call as perception. You and me can go to the same place, attend the same event, talk to the same bunch of people. You can come away with a different experience. I can walk away from the whole thing with a different experience, because your perception is pretty different from my perception. So our five sensory organs, or taking inputs from the environment, all the stimulus that's out there, we send it to our central processing unit, or our central nervous system, which is creating an impression, which is interpreting all those stimulus and then giving it some kind of meaning. So we recreate what we see, observe, feel, sense, and touch, and also smell. So obviously, perception plays a massive role. Suppose you perceive this class as any other class, your experience of this class is different. But if you perceive this class as, yeah, I put money here, I'm investing some quality time here, and the professor is trying his or her best in trying to explain the concept and give a certain value to us, your perception changes. So obviously you take more interest, you're more engaged, you're more committed, the effort increases, and obviously the outcome is better off. You have a better understanding, you've developed certain skills, you can transfer some skills at the workplace because of your perception. Everything that happens to us, we can control the way we interpret whatever happens to us. And I think it's only human beings which have this higher order level of perception. I mean, all other animals and creatures have perception, but I think we have this ability to interpret things in a deeper way, in a more metaphorical way. So perception is a massive thing. The way we look at ourselves, the way we look at people around us, the way we make meaning out of events which happen, and the way we actually interact with organizational elements. So we're going to discuss perception in detail. And then, of course, learning theories. Learning is a lifelong process. That's what I've always felt. I don't think like a professor. Most of the times I'm thinking I'm wearing the hat of a student. I love to feel that I'm a student, I'm still learning, and there are many things that I do not know. The fact that you can spend all your life trying to know will let you to go only and know just the fringes of knowledge. I could spend 100 years, I'll still be only at the fringes of the entire body of corpus of knowledge. I'll never get to know everything, impossible in a lifetime. So to think like a student means to be willing to learn, the willingness to accept that I do not know something, the willingness to accept that I made a mistake, that that lifelong learning is something that's beneficial, that there's no end to learning. You never stop learning from life, from people, from books, from events that happen in our our own experiences. We learn from everything, from everybody, literally. So learning is a very integral aspect, and what you learn affects the way you perform at the workplace. I learned a new skill, I learned a new technology. It might just influence the way I work at the workplace, I work on my job. So it influences my interactions, it influences my job performance. So learning is a very integral aspect of individual behavior, that employees are interested, that organizations are interested, because they want to train, they want to make people learn and adapt to changes, adapt to new technologies, and improve their performance levels. All that we are going to discuss today is actually applicable at the personal level, at the family level, and in organizations. So I don't know. I'll try and do my best today to try and get all these things. This is a whole course called Management 370, Organizational Behavior. So we're just encapsulating everything in a chapter because I know this is a freshman class. It's an introductory class to management. And many students in my class were from other majors as well. So it's not heavy, but it also talks about everything that's really important. So OB, organizational behavior, as I said, is something that speaks to individual behavior. There are certain individual behaviors listed here in the slide itself, which talks about attitudes and perceptions. There are other individual behavioral elements, which are personality, motivation, and learning as well. So those are something that's related to individuals. We have attitudes, perceptions, motivation, learning, and motivation. So we'll speak about that, as we progress. And there are elements here listed out here under organizational behavior that speak to individuals in teams. When you talk about group norms, interaction among team members, teamwork, interpersonal and intergroup conflict, why people disagree in teams, and why is it a challenge to bring team members to come together and work for a common goal. So these are important elements of group dynamics and teamwork, and where individuals are interacting in a team setting. And that's very important for organizations, because organizations are not just made of individual random individuals. They're made of individuals who are working on several teams or several committees. That's a requirement. We do not go to organizations and say, I have nothing to do with others. We are all interdependent, we are interacting, and we complement each other in terms of skills. So we have to be working on several teams or several committees that are mandated to achieve specific goals which cannot be accomplished by individual effort. So obviously, the teamwork and group dynamics is an important way where individuals are interacting and behaving, and we are interested in that. And of course, at the organizational level, you have strategies, culture, and structure, and technology, formal authority, the chain of command. And all these are integral aspects of organizational behavior as well. So we have three levels how we can study organizational behavior. That's what is right now here. I was speaking about that. We have the hidden aspects. See, the metaphor of an iceberg is presented. Organizational behavior, only 10% is visible. Say the policies and procedure, technology, structure may be visible. Some formal authority is visible. But the remaining, which we talked about, attitudes, perception, motivation, the learning, group norms, informal interactions, intergroup conflict, and culture, these are not visible. So obviously there is 90% which is extremely important, but they're not actually visible. So OB is a very intriguing and interesting subject, field of study, that I think every manager, every individual, every employee, every individual should be aware of. So it's a very interesting field. and closely related to stuff that you take in psychology 101 as well. Yeah. So let's go off goals of organizational behavior. Again, why do we study individual behavior in an organizational context? We want to, say, increase the amount of employee productivity. If we were not interested in the productivity in terms of effectiveness and efficiency, we don't have to study individual behavior. Me as a manager, I need to know how my students would interact. What do they like? What is their perception? What is their motivation? How do they learn faster? What are their attitudes? If I know these a bit better, I would tailor my teaching, I would structure my content for this course in ways that can keep you motivated, that can get you to learn stuff that is important. So, employee productivity will definitely improve if you know how to deal with your employees, if you understand their learning, if you understand their motivations, and if you understand how they perceive things, and if you understand their attitudes, their level of commitment, involvement, engagement, and job satisfaction. These are extremely important things because productivity for us really matters. And then we have the second thing that's listed here, which is absenteeism. The tendency that somebody absents from your at the workplace frequently is something that you want to deal with. It's not something positive. If your workforce are not attending, are not present all the time, and not contributing, you're losing productivity. You're just paying, salaries and wages for nothing. You want the maximum out of them, and that means you want to reduce absenteeism. Like in my class, as you started off, I started off today's class with taking attendance just to make sure that my students come. So obviously, I am interested in figuring out ways to reduce absenteeism. I don't have much of a problem, but that should be the concern for every teacher, for every manager in companies. Turnover, sometimes employees might voluntarily choose to leave the company, or sometimes, managers have to take tough decisions. They might fire people, both together, employees leaving by their own discretion, or employees being fired from their jobs for whatever reason. Together is what we call as turnover. And understanding individual behaviors, the individual level, team level, organizational level is important because we don't want too much of turnover. We don't want people who are talented and smart people leaving or finding themselves in situations where they need to be fired. So that's something that you want to avoid. And then you have the fourth bullet point here, which is organizational citizenship behavior. See, OCB or organizational citizenship behavior is something that employees are willing to do beyond their own job requirements. Suppose I go out of the way to help my own team members succeed. If I take additional responsibilities, if I'm working, say, in ways that I'm willing to work even during the weekends, I can give you my own example. Suppose for the School of Management accreditation efforts, many times we worked weekends. I went to Old Westbury campus to work during the weekends. And I have an appreciation letter from my dean saying, not just me, it's a group of people, it's a team of people who work like crazy. And my dean actually wrote us an appreciation email saying, I know the countless number of hours that you guys are putting in towards the school and for the accreditation that we have right now. And he truly appreciates that. And he understands that it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of hard work. But the commitment that we have is stemming from the fact that we are good citizens of the company, that we really care for the school, and that we also care for the students and the rest of the stakeholders. And then we have the fifth one, which is job satisfaction. Extremely important thing, job satisfaction. Now, it's also plenty of research has shown that more satisfied employees do better at the workplace. They bring in positivity, they're more creative, they contribute better towards results, they actually share ideas, they're happy to collaborate more. So there are plenty of takeaways from people who are job satisfied. And the last one is, of course, negative. The sixth bullet that's listed on this slide is workplace misbehavior, aggression, violence, dysfunctional behavior, organizational politics. These are all workplace misbehaviors that people can be involved in, which are not productive, which actually damage the kind of cohesiveness that's there among teams, that spreads a negative vibe among peer groups. So, workplace misbehavior, we need to have ways to deal with it, and we don't want that to hurt our performance as a company, as an organization. Now, the first learning objective after the introduction is over is explain the role that attitudes play in job performance. Let's go. So we have job satisfaction. It's obvious that attitudes are the dispositions that we have towards others, how we look at, how are we evaluating other people or events. And that's my disposition. I like my students. That's my attitude. These are favorable evaluative statements of my students. I don't know if, yeah, for example, one of my student in Busy 405 class, her name is Juxin Shu. So she actually asked me, Professor, can you write me a recommendation letter? I did, and she actually put my name as a referee for New York University and for Columbia School, for several of the graduate programs. So I had to do her recommendation letters because graduate school admissions definitely take a couple of references from your professors, because I like my students. I understand them. I work with them very closely. So if you ask me what's my attitude, I have a very favorable disposition towards my students and towards my job. I like my students. I like my job. So attitudes is a very important thing that influences how I do my job. And it's basically the cognition that I have, the emotional attachment that I have, that actually makes up the attitude itself. And then you have several attitudes that are listed here other than job satisfaction. The first one being job satisfaction, the gratitude, the kind of outlook I have towards my workplace, towards the task that I have to perform. It's a measure of job satisfaction. Yeah, I was speaking about involvement. It's how an employee identifies with his or her job, participates in it, and considers his or her job performance as being important in terms of self-esteem. I feel good if my students have nice things to say about me or kind words to talk about how I teach in class. And obviously that matters to me, and that's why I'm more involved. I want to do a good job. I want to listen to positive feedback from my students, from my peer group, from my dean. So that's involvement. Commitment has three components. Myers and Allen's talk about it. You have three elements of organizational commitment. It could be effective commitment, how much of emotional attachment I have towards my job. Normative commitment, what's my obligation to perform? It's called normative commitment. What's my obligation to my students? I want to give them the best. I don't want to be compromising. I want to teach them everything. That's an obligation towards my students. There should be value addition. I don't want to waste their time. So to me, that's what we call as normative commitment. Affective is the emotional bonding that I have towards my job, towards my company, and towards my students as well. That's affective commitment. And the last one is called its continuance commitment. Now, what is it if I lose or if I take up another job? I'll miss teaching. I'll miss my students. I'll miss the kind of bonding that I have towards my own colleagues. So what's the opportunity cost if I were to not have this job and not to have the opportunity to work with New York Tech and with the School of Management? So that's what we call as continuance commitment. I don't want to leave you guys. I don't want to leave this great opportunity to serve you and to work in the field of teaching. I consider this as a noble profession. And to me, that's continuance because there's a huge opportunity cost. I want to keep this job. I want to continue to do the good job, good work that I'm doing. So together, the affective, which is emotional, normative, which is the obligation, and the continuance, the opportunity cost that I lose, together it becomes organizational commitment, an important attitude. And the last one we call as employee engagement, the kind of passion that you have for doing your job. I'm happy to see that it's here. So it's the interest that you have. It's the level of, how much of passionate you are in terms of what you want to do for the company. So obviously these are all important elements and these are all important attitudes that everybody should know. Okay, cognitive dissonance. This is an interesting, you know, uh, concept that organizational behavior has. I might have an attitude, but it doesn't get reflected in behavior. So my attitude could be something else, and my behavior is something else. And that kind of incompatibility or inconsistency between my attitude and my behavior is what we call as cognitive dissonance. And I think every human being, every employee tries to reduce the amount of cognitive dissonance. You want to feel good that you have the same attitude and you behave the same person. And so everybody tries to reduce, that kind of incompatibility or inconsistency between attitudes and behavior. And how do you do it, and why do you have to do it? It's because if you perceive no, those factors which are contributing to cognitive dissonance as being important, you will try your best to reduce it. And if the outcomes of this cognitive dissonance really matters to you, I think you will try and reduce that kind of inconsistency which might be there between your attitude and behavior. How many of you, for example, if I ask you, have you felt that your attitude could be different, the way you look at things could be different, but your actual behavior sometimes doesn't, always stay consistent with your attitude? Have you experienced that? Hello?
Yes, Professor.
Yeah. Did you anytime experience that kind of, situation where your attitude could be slightly different and your behavior somehow doesn't match with that attitude?
I guess maybe like a road rage kind of situation, where somebody just cross you on the road and just stops right there and just middle of the road for a short period of time. You probably will get upset, but then I guess you can, you know, take a breather and just say, you know what, it's not the end of the world, stuff like that.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that example, really. I never thought about it that way because, yeah, I'm much very balanced in that sense. So I don't get, what do you say, pissed off by things that happen every day. So I'm happy you bring it, and which is actually true. So you bring a very good example. I'll give you an example of cognitive dissonance. See, my attitude towards teaching and towards being a faculty, I always love it. Whether I taught in India, whether I taught in Jordan or in the United Arab Emirates, my attitude is that I've enjoyed. I also went and taught in Russia, for example, and I loved it. Even though I don't speak Russian, the Russian students did not understand every bit of English that I was speaking. I really loved connecting. We had an interpreter, a translator in between who was helping me, teach, but I still enjoyed it. So my attitude towards teaching is, yes, students are good anywhere. All that you have to do is do an honest job in trying to get the message across. You want to add some value to their learning experience, and that's the key. But then sometimes you have this behavioral problems. Like suppose I have to move to the US. We spent good amount of 7 years, creating the School of Management activities in Abu Dhabi, and we did a lot for the local accreditation, the ministry accreditation there. We supported the school in AACSB accreditation right since 2015. In 2014, we had the initial accreditation as well. And just the fact that working in the US is okay for me as an attitude, but I have to leave Abu Dhabi. I have to leave a place where I worked 7 years. I have to leave behind all the great work that we did. You're somehow not very happy because you have that kind of attachment to that place and where you have done so much. This is what we call as cognitive dissonance, but you need to let go. I need to tell myself life moves on and that my attitude and behavior should be more consistent. I try to reduce that dissonance by saying, oh, this is a great beginning. It's another opportunity. It's a great start. And it's a great blessing that I have an opportunity to teach in the US and where I get to see again multicultural, kind of population. The diversity is immense and smart people around here. They have great ideas. Innovation has been the benchmark. I mean, US has been like that. They've supported innovation. They've supported plenty of research kind of things. So if I come here, it's a great opportunity for me to serve as much as I can learn. So I try to reduce that, dissatisfaction or feeling of insecurity, moving out from your comfort zone in Abu Dhabi to coming to New York. So when people ask me, Professor, how do you like New York and how are you finding it? I think it was easy. It was seamless. Though the two environments are very different, countries are different, tax regulations are different, everything is different, but the transition is easy because I manage that cognitive dissonance faster, better. So my ability to adjust and adapt depends on my attitude and my ability to manage the cognitive dissonance. Trying to see my attitude and behaviors are as consistent as possible. They might not be always consistent. Try, put that effort, reduce that dissonance or dissatisfaction. Okay, understanding attitudes very important because you want to keep people happy, your employees happy. You don't want them to leave. You want them to miss my class and miss coming to the work. Both are important, and it's generally research has shown that satisfied employees are more engaged, more involved, and they perform better. And obviously, employees will always try to reduce dissonance. As I was giving you my own example, and what Joseph was talking as a general example in everyday life. By the way, all your examples that you can think of don't have to be related to work. OB is a beautiful field. You can think about examples at home, with friends, in social communities, in associations that you have been part of. OB is all about individuals, as individuals, individuals in teams, individuals in relationship to organizational, systems. So all that we are speaking doesn't have to be related to work. You can think about it how you deal at home, how you deal with, members of a community. It's all relevant. So we're going to discuss the next important learning objective, which we call as personality. So obviously, two parts to personality: personality traits that I'm born with, and personality traits that I develop over a period of time. So individual personalities are completely unique. Each of us think differently, each of us feel differently, and all of us behave differently and to the same given situation. And like attitudes, it actually dictates how we react to situations, events, and other people at the workplace as well. And there's a wonderful framework to understand personality. The Myers and Briggs type indicator. I don't know if you see the screen, but it's called Myers and Briggs type indicator, MBTI. If you have time, I would suggest you to go online and type in Myers and Briggs type indicator, MBTI, and it'll take you to a questionnaire, which is pretty long. So don't do it right now. It'll take you at least a good 20 to 30 minutes to do the questionnaire. I'm sure some of you must have done it out of curiosity. Somebody must have told you, or you must have come across this MBTI assessment of your own personality. And they assess you based on four dimensions. And of course, you can have a permutations and combinations of 4 plus 4 dimensions, which is like 16 personality types. So if you go about, let me talk about the continuum of personality dimensions. One is extroversion versus introversion. Extroversion is those people personality trait who can socialize easily, make friends easily. And I don't know, if I were to ask you, how many of you think you're extroverts? Do you make friends easily?
Yes, I make friend easily.
Right, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. But see, the opposite is true for me. I don't make friends that easily, but when I make friends, I keep them for a lifetime. So I'm pretty much on the introverted side. I'm not saying I'm complete extreme introverted, but I lean towards being introvert. Like say, for example, Mohammadua is so confident when he said, I make friends easily. I might try after many years of teaching and interacting with several cultures. I might have become better. I'm not that introverted anymore, but I still lean towards being shy. I'm quiet, I'm shy, and it takes a while before I become comfortable. And with strangers, it takes even a little bit longer. And then I
Oh
need
yeah,
to.
yeah. I think your problem, as you say right now, you are outside to speak. Maybe that's your problem. Like it's hard for you to find a friend. I think.
Right. And sometimes a personality type really helps you. Like if you're an extrovert, you might fit into jobs like marketing, sales, or being a lawyer and talking to people, interacting. You're very good at it. And if you're an introvert, you could be more creative, you could be silent, you think a lot, and you can be very imaginative. So every personality is unique, and there's nothing wrong being more towards being introverted. As much as there is all the positivity if you're extrovert, there are positives in both personality dimensions. So nothing to say introverted personalities cannot succeed. They can succeed as much as extroverted personalities can. So Again, you might want to ask yourself, find a job that fits your personality so that you enjoy what you do and that you don't struggle as much. You adapt faster, you learn faster, you contribute, you get recognized better. So the key is to understanding yourself is very important. Understanding individuals is important. The second dimension that you have, the continuum, is called sensing versus intuition. Now, a sensing dimension is when people are dependent on factual information and data. That's sensing. So they focus on the standard routines which are based on factual information, and while intuition, or the personalities that are dominated by intuition, they do not actually go by the granular data that's there. They take the big picture, and they know how to connect better taking the big picture, and they make those connections faster intuitively, and that's their personality. So if I were to ask you guys, how many of you are that, towards, I can't say always we are sensing, always we are intuitive. We could be both. But if I ask you this question, which is a dominant personality trait that defines you? Are you more towards data, detail, factual information, or do you just look at the big picture? So are you sensing or are you intuitive? Is there anybody who can say I'm more sensing because I depend more on gathering data and focusing on those routines and factual information before I come up with a conclusion or decision? Is there anybody like that? How many of you depend on, say, factual data and information before you actually draw a conclusion? Is there anybody who loves doing that? There's nothing bad about anything. Trust me, guys. We all are different personalities.
Or mostly for me, mostly, yeah. Um,
Me.
yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And how many of you can call yourselves more towards intuition?
I'd say I go more by intuition,
Okay, so our
experience. Yeah.
okay. So in that sense, you go with your insights, what you feel good about, your gut feeling, right?
Yeah, I put it like that. Mostly through experience, the way I perceive, I
Right.
move around my perspective.
Right. So that's what's the difference between being sensing versus intuition. And then the third continuum that you might have is thinking versus feeling. If your decision making is purely based on logical interpretation and you're very analytical, all your decisions are based on logic, rationality, and being very analytical. That's what we call as thinking. But if your decisions are based on values and beliefs, and that's what we call as feeling. Now, I might ask you the same question. See, I would tend to say that I go towards feeling. My decisions as the assistant dean in Abu Dhabi campus were more towards values. I believed in certain values and beliefs, and these are the things that dictated the kind of decisions that I took. So if a student came to me, I would not ask for him, evidences and paperwork and say a doctor's certificate and blah blah blah. I would trust an individual to the point that sometimes I might be wrong in trusting people. I didn't really care because my student might have every possibility that he or she is going through a tough phase, challenging time. So I had this value that my students are my family, and if they're telling me that they were ill and they could not make up for an exam, or if they needed extra time, I trusted their word. I believed in them. These are values that I stood for. So my decision making in supporting the student's case and giving the student a second chance, but not based on documentation, not based on paperwork, not always based on logical thinking, but more towards feeling. So I would tend to call myself feeling kind of person rather than always thinking kind of person. Is there a person who is logical most of the times and analytical most of the times and can call yourself thinking type of person? Is there anybody there?
That's how I am.
Okay, Yusuf. So it's good. Like you're a tough manager, you're logical, which is
Yes,
actually
sir.
yes. I like to hear that, by the way. Say because I'm not capable of doing that, Yusuf. If you said that, that's a great personality trait. And I'm sure if you're occupying top positions in an organization, you
Yes,
got to
sir.
yeah, you got to have that personality trait, Yusuf. Okay.
It's very cutthroat, but it's okay.
I like to hear that, but yeah, so you have an advantage for every personality trait. So Yusuf, as much as you have an advantage, if you said you were a thinking kind of person, I have my own advantage that I'm so approachable, and then students of whatever, they can easily come up to this. They feel the sense of family with me, and they can, without having to ask them, they will share their deepest concerns. That's me. So, in certain fields, me being a teacher, I think I'm just not teaching a course or teaching a chapter or whatever. I'm a mentor, I'm a philosopher, I'm like a well-wisher, and I'm a servant of all. That's how I look at myself. So, certain professions like teaching, I think my personality fits in really well. I don't have to be tough. I don't have to be always dominating and taking tough decisions which are based on logic. I could have this leverage of trusting people, caring for them, empathizing with them, and then that's what is feeling. And then the last continuum of personality types is between judging and perceiving. Now, those people who look at the external world being a very orderly way and planned way are those that we can call as judging. So when you're on a holiday, how many of you go and go in a very planned way, in a very orderly fashion? Those are judging people. But if you're very flexible and very spontaneous, and that's what we call as perceiving. So I might put this in context. Suppose you're planning a holiday, maybe a short vacation. How many of you would plan meticulously, all the detail? You literally have it out there. Or you just are a bit more flexible and spontaneous. You know where, you know which place. It's not like you're going nowhere, but you actually know where you want to go. But not everything is, systematic. Not everything is planned out. You're more of that very flexible, spontaneous kind of perceiving kind of person. So how many of you are judging? You lean towards being judging, where you look at the external world in a planned and orderly way, or how many of you lean towards perceiving, which you are very flexible and spontaneous?
I would
Who's
say I go
Arbor? Yeah.
more towards perceiving.
Okay.
Usually, I go towards like an outdoor area,
Mhm.
and it's sort of you could find a lot of different places that work out well for the vacation.
And perhaps something that you might hear somebody, this is an interesting place to go. It's very close by. You just add it up and then make a trip there as well, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this is again like the way I am. I would plan a bit, not necessary that you don't plan at all, but then you're very flexible with time and then the places and maybe where you want to adventure. I had a student of mine in Jordan. His name is Ahmad Atiani. He kept sharing pictures from the Himalayas in India. And I'm like, wow, Ahmad, are you in India? He said, yes, sir, I'm on the Himalayas. And he kept sending pictures that are just mind boggling. You can't imagine some place like that exists on the planet. Himalayas, the whole Himalayas, it's not just part of India. It's the Himalayas are there across Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, plenty of it in, other parts. So Himalayas there's nothing like the Himalayas. You just, I mean, there is Switzerland, there is, I don't know, whichever beautiful countries, Canada, landscapes are amazing, but somehow they always tell me there's nothing like the Himalayas, basically. So he kept sending pictures, and after a month, he kept still sharing. I'm like, are these old pictures from your trip last month? He said, I'm still in the Himalayas. I'm like, what? A month? And then 2 months later, keep sending pictures from Himalayas. I'm like, no, you can't be kidding. You can't be in the Himalayas until now. He said, I'm here still. 3 months, he was still in the Himalayas. And that guy is definitely perceiving extreme flexibility. He's just backpacking and hiking somewhere. And he told me that he lived with native people there, absolute strangers. And he said they were so kind, so giving, and so accommodating. They had little, very little, because, in the Himalayas, you don't have access. And everything that you want to get is a luxury. Getting food, getting access to basic necessities, everything is difficult. And still, they were willing to share. So he told me the Himalayas and his trip to India just transformed him from inside. So I just give you a very a different example. It's not just about people in this class and about me. All everybody's experience is beautiful. So these are all personality traits. How much, to what extent we are dominated by perceiving. This Ahmad's case, extremely perceiving, very flexible, extremely spontaneous. Maybe I'm not that. Maybe Arbor is not towards that extreme, but he's there towards being more flexible. So we always want to understand each other. Arbor, you were saying something.
No, I was just agreeing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then you have another way of looking at personality, the big five. Carl Jung actually proposed the big five. It's a nice, it's again very similar to what I was explaining till now. So the big five has the first one, extroversion. So obviously somebody who is social, who is talkative, yeah, great people for jobs that require people to interact and talk and make friends and sell things or sell concepts. So extroversion is one factor. Agreeableness, the kind of person that you are. Um, I still remember once when I wrote an email to my dean. As the assistant dean, I was still the assistant dean. I wrote him an email. He replied, "How can I say no to such a polite assistant dean?" This was his reply. I still didn't get my answer whether he was approving something, but he was writing to me, "How can I say no to such a polite assistant dean?" So I think that's a classical example of you being somebody who's good natured, trusting, and whom people like. So agreeableness is a great virtue if you want to be successful as a team member. You got to be good natured. You have to be accommodating. You should be empathizing. And to me, that's an integral aspect of you being successful working in teams. The third point, which is there on this slide, is called conscientiousness. So obviously, you've got to be somebody whom they can depend, or you're trustworthy, and any task which is being given to you, you do a great job. They don't have to come back and say, "Have you done it? And are you maintaining the kind of quality that it requires?" They know for sure you're giving it your best shot. They also know for sure you don't leave any stone unturned, that you would put your effort and research and give out the best kind of output for that particular task because you're trustworthy, you're persistent, you're driven by performance. That's what is conscientiousness. That's what it means. And that's a great personality trait. If you're dealing with people who have conscientiousness, I think you're in great places because you give them a task, it'll be done. And it'll not be done just for the sake of doing, they'll do it with high quality, which has impact for themselves and for the team. So that's a great personality trait. And then the fourth point, which is there on this slide, it's what we call as emotional stability. Now, given a challenging situation or stressful condition, how well can you absorb that particular situation? How calm and composed can you stay? How much presence of mind you have while dealing with a challenging or tough situation. Say, for example, the AACSB team comes for a good 4 days. They look at every file, they look at all the documentation, they ask for plenty of additional evidences and documents. They ask you tough questions, not easy ones at all. You don't see some of them coming as much as you can anticipate questions. They're going to give you a hard time. And how do you remain calm and composed? How do you say the right thing? And how do you not blurt out stuff that can put the whole AACSB effort on the line? You don't want to jeopardize the school's future and stakeholders future. You want to make sure the school looks good and we are still in compliance and we get a favorable report from the AACSB. I think it's as much to do with preparation and the kind of data collection and then the data presentation. To me, accreditation efforts, whether it's in UAE or whether it's the ACSB accreditation, so much depends on your own emotional stability. The fact that you're positive, you stay calm, you're never going to be nervous or anxious about something. That's emotional stability. So to me, I think every job, whichever job you're going to do in the future, and as you grow up in the organizational hierarchy, the emotional stability becomes even more important. You're going to have all kinds of people to interact. You're going to face all kinds of situations. You have to be calm. You should be knowing how to deal with people in the most dignified manner. You just don't lose it because you're the leader. You set an example. You cannot, you know, you just break and start, doing funny stuff. No, because you're going to spook everybody else. The team will be in jitters. If the leader is shaky, the team cannot have the same level of confidence. So you have to lead from the front and support your team as well. So emotional stability, very important personality trait. How many of you are strong on emotional stability? I'm sure everybody's good, but how many of you think you're extremely emotionally stable in very tough, challenging situations?
That's hard, to be honest.
Good. I'm happy you said that because it comes out of practice, not just you need to put yourself to test. I think that's the only way you can learn. So every situation that you face is new to you and challenging, and you've never faced something similar before. I think this is a great opportunity for you to stay calm. And I've had that. Say for all that I've done accreditation efforts in the UAE for 5 7 years, actually 5 years, and then I came here and my dean made me the accreditation director, straight up. I'm like, wow, this is New York. It's more students, more faculty, more departments, more majors. How am I going to replicate what I did in Abu Dhabi? But I think you need to stay calm. You need to work with teams. It's not an individual who can achieve that. It's everybody's input. It's my boss, dean's support. It's my top management team. It's the other groups that working on so many things. It's other directors. It's students, alumni, staff. It's the centers of excellence. Everybody's efforts. It's the industry, boards, business advisory board, the student advisory board members. So I just cannot think I'm taking all the burden of the entire bunch of stakeholders. No, I'm just an assistant. I'm coordinating. I'm helping. I'm assisting. So that's the method that I used, and I played my part very silently in a very composed way. I've learned that over a period of time. Initially, I would have never had the same level of composure in such a challenging situation, but now it's like any other day. We did a great job. We know what we are. We're confident as a school. We have hundreds of examples for everything that we claim that we did. We have evidences. We have documentation. So why am I even freaking out? Why should I be scared? Why should I be nervous or anxious? That comes out of experience. I think you need to train yourself in every situation. Put yourself in those situations. Don't shy away from those places. And when you put yourself in that situation, that's a great learning experience. And every time you come out stronger, more emotionally stable. That's a great quality and a personality trait that you got to have. Then openness to experience. This is your willingness to go, out of the box, challenge yourself for new experiences, and take in criticism as much as possible, and you take it positively, and you're able to incorporate criticism in positive ways. I think that's openness to experience. For me, it's been a great journey. I taught in India, where you have people from different cultures, different languages, religions as my students. Then I go and teach in Jordan, a completely different culture, different language, whatever cultural sensitivities, everything is different. Then I come to the UAE again, openness to experience, embrace the change, become part of that society, enjoy every experience that is there in front of you, and become part of that society. And the same is the case with New York. So to me, openness to experience will actually let you become more successful in any kind of expatriate assignment. Your willingness to go explore and become part of any culture, and appreciate the diversity which is out there. That's openness to experience. And everybody is there. They're going to come up with their own approaches and tell you there are better ways, there are other ways of doing things. And you're happy to accept that. So that's what is openness. How many of you are willing to experiment, and how many of you are open to experiences? Are you willing to go out of your comfort zone and work in another culture, in another company, in another, I don't know, field, and explore and enjoy the adventure?
Yeah, I'd say so.
You should. Don't let go of that opportunity, because you live once. I think you should have the best of everything that life has got to offer, for which don't hold yourself back. The world is your stage. You can go experiment. Every country, every region, the whole world is offering you opportunities. Don't restrict yourself to say US or North America, or next door. No, the whole world is yours. These restrictions are only for the presidents and the countries and the politicians. We have no restrictions. We are like birds. We don't need anything. We can just fly. You got me?
I was actually going to say that if politicians adopted this kind of these factors, things would be a lot easier. It's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, because I see myself so much away and adrift from the political setup that we have in each country. I'm no expert in politics, but I'm like, the whole world is mine. I identify with this planet. I don't identify myself with India or America or the Middle East. Anywhere I go is my planet. I'll just embrace everything that's out there. Why should there be hatred? Why should I be choosy? Why should I stereotype? No, that's not my job. I'm not here to evaluate anybody. I'm here to become part of every particular society. And I love those differences. I love the diversity. I think that's openness to experience. It's not,
I think that's Professor. That's a good thing
yeah.
because I've been around the world
Mhm.
and I've realized that everywhere I go, I see different people in different locations. I mean, I've been to remote areas where you have different variety and different types of people. So the world, like the world, is our oyster. We just go to places and, like you said, and don't feel like you don't belong there because it's a big globe that we all live on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would love to host you in India when I go next year, hopefully. If you guys are traveling to India, I'll host you at my place. I can show you parts of India at my expense, dear. You just pay for your flights, travel, local travel, and hospitality in India is my job.
Wow, that would be nice, Professor.
I'm happy to do that. I've done that for several, of my colleagues from Abu Dhabi. They've come and stayed back at my home. I took them to Kerala. I took them to Goa. I've taken them to see the Taj Mahal, and I've taken them to Delhi and the Golden Temple in Punjab. So, I've done plenty of these trips for colleagues who came from Abu Dhabi campus, and I was happy hosting them. They're like family to me there. My family keeps asking, how is this guy? How is that guy? How is this guy? And are they getting married? What is happening in their lives? So just get off their back. They have their own privacy, okay? So it's like that, yeah. Yeah, then you have emotional intelligence. I think this is a very, very important thing. If you have time, if you can read a book called Emotional Intelligence, the author is Daniel Goleman. I can put that on the chat very quickly so that you don't forget the author. It's a beautiful book. I would very strongly suggest that you should take a sneak peek at the book itself because it's a beautiful book to read. It's called Emotional Intelligence. I'm not going to write that on the chat. It's the author is Daniel Goleman. So when you have time, please do read it. He speaks about this in great detail. He speaks about emotional intelligence that we are speaking just now, like say Joseph, Arber, and me. We were discussing examples, but he actually breaks it down into these elements that you see here. First one is self-awareness. You got to be aware how you feel at every point of time, and you can control that. I can continue to feel good about myself even when I'm surrounded by the most negative people. I don't let negativity touch me. That's self awareness. You can say any amount of negative things as much as you want. You could possibly go about insulting me. I don't take any of those insults. It's not me. Go ahead. If you're getting joy out of doing that, go ahead. But I don't get affected. I'm not reacting. I'm not feeling upset. I'm not feeling unpleasant. I continue to feel positive. I continue to feel good about everything. And I feel extremely assured and sense of confidence. Nothing will bother me without my permission. That's self-awareness. I really mean it. I've gone through situations where people try to be insulting. I just don't even hear to it, the insults. I'm blocked. They can come back to me and say the same thing and say, "Did you say it? I can't. I didn't even hear it." I'm oblivious to negativity. That's self-awareness, and that comes out of practice. It's not something that you're gifted by birth. It comes sure by practice. Self-management of your own emotions and impulses. I spoke about that. You got to manage how you feel. The more pleasant you feel, the more positive you feel. You're spreading those positive vibes around people that you work with, in your family, among your children. among your co-workers, even to your boss. He or she has to change because you're so positive. You know how to manage yourself. Come on, if you don't know how to manage yourself, where is the chance that you're going to manage others? There's no way. So it's all, each of these words starts with self-awareness, self-management, self-motivation. I mean, you can't wait for a faculty or XYZ to come and motivate you, dear. Nobody will. You got to motivate yourself every day. What should get you started every day? Suppose you are going for a workout. I mean, even if you had a long day and if you feel that this is something that you should do, I think that's self-love. Motivate yourself. Self-discipline is very important here. So, and if you're motivated all the time, you can come back from the most difficult times. You can come back every time you fall because you've learned from those lessons. So to me, self-motivation is extremely important. It actually teaches you discipline. It teaches you to talk to yourself, not be dependent on anyone. And you're good by yourself. That's how strong you can be. Of course, if others teach you, be grateful. If others support you and love you, be again grateful. But you don't have to depend on that. You are good by yourself. Empathy. This is another great element of emotional intelligence. I was telling you this. When a student comes and tells something to me, I've got to think like a student, not just think, listen, understand, be aware, and accept. It's not I just listen and I just don't care. It's I listen and understand. I empathize. I put myself in that particular student's position and I accept. And that's why I'm willing to go that extra step or extra mile to help that particular student, because this is what we call true empathy. I don't know, I'm speaking like a motivational speaker, but that's what it is. Social skills. And how do you handle the emotions of others? This is how you do it. You got to stay calm. Listen to people. There might be something that's upsetting them. It's not who they are. When they're upset, when they're angry, when they're trying to be insulting, it's not because they're bad people. They're not terrible. It's something that's happening in their lives which is bothering them. They're not completely aware of it. So you got to empathize and deal with those emotional outbursts in a more sympathetic way. Listen to them. Let them come out with their feelings. When they are a little bit calmer, you go back and try and reason with them. Give them that kind of support. Let them feel self-assured. Let them feel that they're cared for, that they are respected. And this is how you can get them up to your level where they're able to reciprocate. Don't expect nice things for somebody who's suffering, who's hungry, who's been, going through a very tough phase at home. I can't. Why should I? Because I don't know their situation. So it means that I have to be more patient, that I should be more accommodating, that I should be willing to listen, that I'm happy to accept and understand, that I'll give them that space for them to express. And then I can come back slowly and tell them, see, this is what I can help you with. This is the genuine concern that I have for you. If you need extra support, I'm willing to assist you. And offer them genuine. It should be honest. You can't fake it. You can't be pretentious. You got to be brutally honest. And honesty is something that's visible. No, you can't fool people. You have to be honest. So to me, that's emotional intelligence. By the way, all these good books that I can keep talking about, I've read them all. I know, teaching via Zoom, I can digress and talk about other, books and courses. It just gets overwhelming. Forgive me for that. But in a Zoom class, you're restricted still because I don't know how many of you are listening. I don't know how many of you, I can't see live feedback. And I don't want to force people to switch on their videos. I'm too nice a person to ask that. If you voluntarily, contribute and participate in a discussion, I'm very grateful.
Now, Professor, I think you have a right to force us to turn off the video because other classes, the professor they suggest you to put a video on. If you want, you should told us. You know, we know you are too nice, but sometimes if you feel you want us to turn off the video, you should say it
I
because
wouldn't.
it's very helpful. If people turn off their video on.
Right, you're right. I don't know. Let's see. They have heard you and me, and I wish, this is emotional intelligence. I think if people have listened to us and appreciate that our concern is very genuine, it's nothing to do with being forceful and assertive.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and turn on your videos, and I'll be very happy to see you all and take more questions. We can go slower, but as much as we can contribute in discussions, I'll be very happy. Now, can personality traits predict practical work-related behaviors? The answer is yes. Definitely, the kind of personality that you are has a huge bearing on the kind of performance that you will bring to the workplace and how you behave and interact with others. So there are plenty of things that we can discuss here. Locus of control, for example. Now, how many of us think that whatever happens at the workplace is because of ourselves? What happens at the work is because of me. How many of you feel that?
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Yeah. So that means you have an internal locus of control, Stevenson. If you say you control the way whatever happens at the workplace for you, I think you have a strong internal locus of control. I think that's a very good personality trait that you have if you have that. Then the second point that we can always discuss under personality, which is called Machiavellianism. Now, Niccolo Machiavelli, he wrote a book called The Prince, and he divided people dominantly based as high max versus low max. Now, high max, he called them being manipulative, who are obsessed with achieving ends, and they said means high max actually it's called Machiavellianism. So high max basically are manipulative. They actually feel that ends justify the means that are used to achieve those ends, and they interact more. That's how high max are. And then they have this emotional distance. High max have an emotional distance with other people involved, and those are high max basically. And there's another element which is being discussed here called as self-esteem. And that's another important personality trait. You got to feel good about yourself. And because of that, you care to work better at the workplace. You want to perform because you want to have that high self-esteem. So, uh, and that's what you can. If you're a high self-esteem kind of person, you take up higher responsibility. You do unconventional jobs. You're willing to, you're happy to take that path which is less known. You're traversing an unknown territory, and you want to explore because you're a high self-esteem kind of personality. Yeah, I don't know if I am, but all my life I've got the opportunities of taking jobs which nobody else wanted. The kind of tough jobs, administrative jobs where you're responsible, answerable, accountable. Nobody wants them. Everybody wants an easy job. So I've taken up those jobs which no one wants, and I feel happy. And today, if I kind of get the recognition from my dean so much, it's because I chose to be high on self esteem. It really matters to me. If I help the whole school, not just myself, that makes me feel good. And that's a thing that you can always develop as part of your leadership. Not all of us are born leaders, but we all have the ability to become leaders. Trust me, guys, you all are equally capable of becoming great leaders. As much as some people are gifted as they're born with certain traits that make them great leaders, charismatic leaders, we all can become leaders. We can discover the leader in us. So that's another personality trait which we call as self-esteem. And then you have another personality trait called as self-monitoring type of people. Now, that's what is important. You want to be having some measure of self-monitoring. Do you monitor yourself? And do you have this ability to adjust your behavior because you're monitoring yourself? You don't want to do it too much, but if you are monitoring yourself, that's a great thing because you learn, you adjust, you adapt very quickly. Do you do that? Are you self-monitoring?
Yeah, I would say taking a stock of yourself. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, taking a so that's reevaluating yourself. From time to time to see how you are doing. And
Yeah.
is
That's a good thing to have. And then there's the last element of personality called risk taking. It's always a clear case. If you don't take the risk, you don't get returns. So somebody who's not willing to take the risk has a lower chances of succeeding. It's not necessary you always have to take extreme risk, but take calculated risk. So risk taking is a personality trait, and that's a strong personality trait. See, if I move from India to Jordan, it's measure of risk because I leave my family, I'm leaving my comfort zone. Then I had to move to UAE, which is another leap of risk, as much as it is a leap of faith. But then if I have to move at the age of say 46 to US, And when the administration is not so much in favor of expatriates coming in, immigrants coming in, I think it's a lot of risk, but I'm willing to take it. So to be honest, you should be that willing to take risk, and risk-taking personality lets you learn, lets you explore, go places, and the whole experience is self-fulfilling and very rewarding. So I think that's a great personality trait that you can always focus on. We go to the next slide. This is Holland's theory. Holland's theory, simply speaking, he speaks about how you can match your personality with the kind of job that you have. He has six personality types. There are two more in the next slide. So if you look at the first one, realistic, investigative, social, conventional, the rest of the
Uh,
two.
uh,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, Professor. You don't mind if I step out? Because I got something to do today.
Sure, absolutely, no problem.
Okay, see you next week, Professor.
Sure. So you have, these kind of personalities who are realistic, investigative, social, conventional, enterprising, and artistic. These are all personality types that he figured out, dominant personality, types. Realistic are those who are shy, genuine, persistent, stable, conforming, and practical. They could fit into jobs like, I'm going with this first row. So realistic personalities are these. They require certain levels of skill, strength, and coordination. What are their personality characteristics? They're very shy, genuine, persistent, stable, conforming, uh, and practical. So they fit into jobs like being a mechanic, drill press operator, somebody who's involved in manufacturing, part of assembly line worker. And then you have the second one, investigative. These personality types prefer activities like thinking, organizing, understanding. And obviously, because they're investigative, they're analytical, they're curious, they're original, they're independent, and they could be good in terms of being a biologist, economist, mathematician, news reporters, because that also involves investigative nature. And then you go to social.
He
These are
just now he was so mad. He's just always mad at me. Like he hates me.
That's how I'm with Ashley.
Yeah.
Like it's just like I'm like buttless. I'm
Yusuf, you need to mute your
I think
microphone.
I think someone's unmuted.
Right, I think it's Yusuf. Anyway, so social, these are personalities who
You know what's
prefer
crazy?
activities that
That's how
involve
I feel about
helping
you.
and developing others. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to go mute. Yeah.
If one day you saw me and Mark in a car.
Okay, so social people are those who are happy helping others and developing others. So obviously they are sociable, friendly, they're cooperative and understanding. So they can be good as social workers, teachers, counselors, clinical psychologists, and stuff like that. It's obvious because they like talking to people, interacting with them, helping them out. Conventionals, they prefer, rule regulated. I would think my son right now is conventional. He prefers rule regulated, orderly, unambiguous activities. I don't know, he might change. So they're very conforming. He doesn't let me violate even a simple rule, a simple norm. He's watching over his dad and saying, "No, dad, you can't do this. Did you not read that?" Every small little rule, the things that you would probably think are trivial, he'll remind me. And I'm like, whoa, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be doing that. So he's very conforming, efficient, practical, maybe unimaginative. Not, I don't want to say that about my son, but perhaps, I don't know. Where will they go do good? They can be strong in accounting jobs, corporate managers. I'm happy. So he could be doing any of that. Then you can go off to the next two types, which are enterprising and artistic. See, enterprising people, they're verbal. I don't know if I fit in there, and opportunities to influence others and attain power. Self-confident, ambitious, energetic, domineering. That's their personality characteristics. And the type of jobs: lawyers, real estate agents, public relations specialists, small business managers. Artistic people, they prefer ambiguous, unsystematic activities. Obviously, they don't want to do anything that's organized. I still remember me going to an MBA class in Abu Dhabi campus, and I was just telling, I don't know why am I so unorganized, and I don't feel good about it. I try to be more organized, but every time I have to search for documents, search for files, and it just takes away so much time, and I feel ashamed that I'm so disorganized. So after like a couple of classes, one of my students brings me a Harvard Business Research article, and she shows it to me and says, less organized or disorganized people are more creative. She made me feel so good about myself. I said, thank you for sharing this article with me. The autistic people, unsystematic, not very organized, but they're extremely imaginative. They are disorderly. They are idealistic, emotional, impractical. Sometimes we are very imaginative. So what kind of jobs can they do? They are painters, musicians, writers, interior decorators. By the way, I probably don't fit in anywhere like that. I might have several good things across personality types that Holland is talking about, meaning which I can seamlessly fit into different types of jobs and roles in organizations. I don't know where you fit in. Are you are you realistic? Are you investigative? Are you social? Are you conventional? Or are you enterprising or artistic? This is a great thing because once you understand your employees, and if you can say this is their dominant personality type, and these are the characteristics that fit them best, you can find an appropriate job for them that they will enjoy and be passionate about doing. You don't, if you have a misfit between the person and the job, they're not going to be happy and they're not going to be productive. They're not motivated. And it's probably they're going to burn out and leave the organization or perform substandard. So you don't want that. So this is a great framework, especially in the organizational context, that you understand your employees' personality types and fit them with the job that they enjoy and are able to contribute. So cultures have an impact on personality. I am, in your slides under the notes, I don't know if you see that particular in the screen that I'm showing right now. It says the Chinese, for example, use the category of conscientiousness more often and use the category of agreeableness less often than Americans do. So, cultures have a bearing. What does that example mean is the Chinese believe the conscientiousness that you should trust people and they want people whom they can trust. And they like that kind of people. Maybe it's the cultural thing. And they don't look for agreeableness as much as Americans would love to see that term or trait, agreeableness among employees. I know I have students from China, I have students from US here. So do you agree that the Chinese, culture makes them value conscientiousness, that trustworthiness, that dependability is an important thing while you're choosing an employee? Can my Chinese students tell me that? Is that true?
I mean, it's sort of the fact that they use that as their basis. They have different structures for their, you could say, ladders of
Right. And for them, they value conscientiousness.
emotions.
They want employees whom they can trust and who are dependable, who are reliable in terms of quality of performance. Whereas in the US, you might really want conscientiousness as much, but you might want agreeableness to a greater degree. You want to work with people who have that sociable, affable nature. You don't want to have a person who is extraordinary, but is not having an agreeable personality. Is that true, Arbor?
Um, I was thinking, yeah, I agree with that, and it also just has me think about the. Could you say it's more inclusive if you use agreeableness
Right.
as the basis
Right.
in a
Yeah,
way?
it's
And
easier to
the
work with you. It's easier to explain you something. It's much easier to get you on board. And in that way, yeah, you use the right word. Inclusivity lets me leverage your skills and your what you bring to the table better, correct?
right, yeah, but at the same time, it also makes you think the latter could also be that it creates more of competitiveness
Right.
in the best term. Maybe even it could be more productive in the end. I guess that's something you could argue, right?
Right. Yeah, I kind of agree with you because I think in the US, it's been that healthy competition is something that's appreciated. And when you involve everyone, it's actually adding up to that healthy competition, correct? That's what you're trying to say, correct?
Yes, yes,
Makes sense. So understanding personality, obviously we discussed this because we want to get a better job and person compatibility. We want to fit the right person for the right job, which matches their personality with the kind of job requirements. Understanding different approaches to work. I think I can give you examples of this. See, for example, in Abu Dhabi campus, we had people from Qatar, from Jordan, from Palestine, from US, of course, and we had people from UK, Ireland. I'm just from the top of my head, of course, from India, me. And so it's literally from every kind of culture. And everybody brought in a different approach. Say people from Jordan and Palestine brought in a different approach to the same problem. Indians had their own perspective of how they looked at the problem. Then the American employee who was there part of the team, he or she brought in a completely different perspective. And so was the case with people from Ireland and the UK. They had a different flavor. In the School of Management, we had a professor from Greece. She thought about it like no one did. So we really loved, and there was a faculty from Pakistan as well. So we had this healthy diversity in terms of cultures. And obviously that changed the way we looked at the same problem. Sometimes it was easy because you're getting a lot of ideas, a lot of approaches, which made it good. But sometimes it was challenging because to get a consensus of such a diverse team, not easy. And bring in the personality traits of extroversion, introversion, thinking versus intuition or feeling versus judging, and put all those factors in together. It's not easy. So these factors are really important. The 90% of the iceberg that we were referring to is as important as what is visible outside the 10%. So that's the importance of personality. Let's talk about perception. I just gave you a brief introduction towards the beginning of the class, that perception is your ability to use your sense organs and take in the stimulus and that you're observing, seeing, feeling, and sensing, and give it a meaning. And that interpretation is what we call as perception. Here is the example that we have. Now, how many of you see an old lady here in the first picture?
Oh, that's what I saw.
And how many of you see a young woman?
I do.
Okay, so see, there is your perception difference, huh? Somebody saw the old lady straight away and somebody seeing a young woman there, huh? So what's going on? Stevenson? Was that Stevenson who said you saw the young woman?
No, I did.
Andy. Okay, so you have to tell me how come you didn't see the old lady. I'm just kidding, but just tell me.
When I first looked at it, I just saw the young woman, and then I saw the caption, and then I saw both.
Okay, cool. And what do you see here as soon as you saw it?
As soon as I saw it, I saw the young woman.
No, the second picture, actually. I'm actually showing that.
The second picture, I saw the two faces.
Wow, okay. And it could be an urn as well, right? How many of you can see the horse and the knight on the horse here? This third picture is a little bit more challenging than the first two. Can you see the knight on the horse?
Yeah.
Okay, that was easy. So this is what, like how we join the dots, how we put things together. It's completely dependent on the context. It's dependent on our past experiences. It also depends on the learning that we've had. Everything has influenced us, the societies, the families that we have grown, our teachers, our past experiences. Everything has influenced the way we perceive the world. So don't jump to conclusions. That's the key. I just can't say, oh, I've had bad experiences in the past, so this has to be as bad. No, this can be a different experience. This person or this event or this context or situation might be completely different. I need to keep myself open to seeing every situation or event or a person in a different way. I can't bring in all my preconceived notions or perceptions to negatively influence what is happening right now. So that's the importance that you understand how perception can distort reality, how it can alter, and how it can actually, make us not see the truth and make us not be more rational in the way we treat people or we take decisions. So perception is good as much as it can make us creative and imaginative, but wrong perception, stereotyping, and all the kind of perceptual errors that we can make can ruin relationships, can ruin the way we evaluate people, and it can take the organization really down. So perception is such an important thing. Don't always go and go for the negative and just say, oh, this is, suppose you came in late to my class, for example. Can I perceive you as being a bad student? No. One thing should not affect my perception. Would you agree?
Yes, I'd agree.
Yeah. So that's the key. As a professor, I cannot make those judgments. I cannot have those prejudices and biases. I got to have a clean, open approach towards each of you for every day, for every assessment, for every quiz. And it's a fresh start. I don't let past experiences or poor performances in the past affect the way I look at your current performances or your evaluations. So I have to be aware how important perception is because we're creating our own interpretation of what we see and observe and sense and touch and feel. So distortions can happen. Fundamental attribution error is something that we all do. We sometimes forget the influence of external factors and we are always thinking, see, when I say students have to do it, you have no excuses to give. How many times a professor should be told, guys, this is the period of the pandemic, it's COVID, everybody is going through hardships, families could be under stress, individuals could be under stress, employees are losing jobs, there's so much happening out there, restrictions on your mobility itself. Somebody who might have technical issues, you might not have access to high speed internet, your computer could go crashing. So if I do not consider all the external factors and just blame it on the students, it's really not correct. So I have to give some space to understand there could be external factors. So when you come and speak to me, I have to give importance to what you're saying. And some of the factors might be external. So just not jump in and say it's your mistake. No, that's a fundamental attribution error. And then there is a self-serving bias. The second way of distorting your perceptions is when we succeed, we say it is because of me, or when we fail, we say it's because of the professor. I'm just giving a silly example. So if you succeed and you say it's all because of my effort, professor. But if you're doing terrible, you might say, it's all because of the professor. That's what we call a self-serving bias. Managers do it. If they succeed, they say it's because of their efforts. But if they fail, they'll say the team let me down. It's sad. That's what happens most of the times, organizations with poor leaders. That's why I use the word managers. Managers just manage. But leaders, they're different. They're role models. They lead from the front and they give the credit to their team. If there's something going wrong, they'll say, it's my mistake. I'll own it up. They're brave enough to accept that. So the difference between a manager and a leader, I hope you're getting it, right? So that's about perception. We still have more things. Perceptual shortcuts, selective perception. Let's talk about holidays. You'll all get interested. Let's talk about some free grades. Free grades, you'll all be interested. Let's talk of reducing some work. You'll all be listening. That's what is selective perception. You want to listen to something that interests you, that resonates with what is exciting for you. That's selectivity. Assumed similarity. This is the easiest example that I can give. Suppose I enter a room of people, say faculty. I'm assuming when I see an Indian, I'm assuming he or she is feeling the same. No, it doesn't have to be. So that's people assume that others are like them. Probably if I see Indians, I might think that way, but may not be true. Stereotyping, again, if you're judging people by one trait, one quality of theirs, and I mean, you group them all together and say they all have to be like this. That's stereotyping, basically. And the halo effect is judging people by a single trait. I'm sorry, I should have explained it the other way around. Stereotyping, you're stereotyping against the whole group. You say they all have to be like this. I still remember one faculty in Jordan campus failed the entire class. Can you fail an entire class? 25 students all fail? Is that something that you can believe?
No.
Yeah, and if you did that, you're stereotyping. You're saying all of them are bad. They cannot be not even once. I mean, I'm not even talking of A grade or B or C or whatever good grades. There's nobody who got a D. Everybody gets an F. How? There's something wrong. You didn't do anything to make at least one person learn something and pass. I would blame it on the professor, basically. If he's failing the whole class, he's stereotyping big time. Okay, halo effect is based on one trait. Like I was giving you the example, if you came late to the class, you're a bad student. No, it shouldn't be that way. That's a perceptual shortcut, and which is not correct. So yeah, perception, employees react to perception, not reality. See, that's the key. I might think this is simple, but when I want to create this change in the organization, they only react to perception. They don't see reality. They perceive this change is big. It is going to be disturbing. It requires a lot of effort. It'll pull them out of their comfort zone. They're not happy. They're not going to be happy. It's not going to be helpful. It's their perception. So the key is to change that perception. If you want to change something in the organization, the key is to have them have the right perception. If they distort it, if they have the wrong perception, they'll make a big issue of everything. And your whole change process will fail because you're not managing perceptions. So it's important that you spend time, talk to people, make them realize it's important, make them have the right perception, make them believe that it's possible, that it's simple, that it's easy, that it's good for them. Then you have the buy-in. And if you want to change anything after that, much easier. So just don't boss it, just don't thrust it on them, and just don't assume that they understand everything. They might have got it wrong. They might have misunderstood it. So it's your responsibility as a manager to clarify things. That's the importance of perception. And the potential for perceptual distortion exists all the time. I might say something, you might understand it differently. I'm a manager, you're my team. I tell you something, you get it wrong. It can happen all the time. So you might want to say, guys, did you get it? You want to, restate what I was telling you? Let me know. I told you this. What did you understand? Ask feedback. Ask suggestions. If they say the same thing as you wanted to convey to them, you're checking for clarity, communication clarity. You're checking for the right perceptions have they been transferred. If they haven't got it the way you want them to get it, spend more time, explain it, make it easier, change your approach. Okay, show some visuals, perhaps. I'm giving you all practical situations. Anyway, then we're done with perception. We go to learning. This is an interesting thing. I don't know how many of you must have seen operant conditioning. Like, how do you train animals? If you've been to dolphin shows, sea lion shows, when you visit these zoo parks and stuff like that, you'd have seen every time a dolphin does a trick, it gets fed. They feed it fish, correct? That's a classical case of operant conditioning. You respond and you do what we want you to do, you get a stimulus, you get a reward. Respond, perform really good, you get your salary. Perform even better, you get an incentive. Perform more consistently, you get a promotion. So it's response, which is first, and then the stimulus comes later. This is a classical case. If the dog learns to behave, it'll get a treat. Because first is response. Do something, you get a treat, which is the stimulus. So likewise, in the workplace, it's simple. You perform, you get paid. You perform, you get recognized. You perform, you get a higher paycheck. You perform, you get promotion and a better position. Do you get that? This is what we call as operant conditioning. Okay? Skinner is the scientist who spoke about it. So if anybody, it's their part of your psychology 101, I'm sure, if anybody took that course. And if anybody is interested in reading more about this, I'll suggest you to go to Operant Conditioning by Skinner. Okay. Social learning. This is an interesting way of learning. We have to understand how people learn. We learn through using 4 different elements of this process. One we call as attention. Simple question. Are you attentive right now? Are you really listening? If you're attentive, you have a better chance of learning. Simple as this. This class has, I don't know how many, like we have right now, 20 students in the class. No, 19 students and me. How many of us are really attentive? Are we actively listening or passively listening? If you're actively listening, you're able to relate. You're able to think and understand what is being taught or discussed in class. Attention comes when you're actively listening. Pay attention. Obviously, then you can retain more. Retention process. Suppose I'm repeating everything I'm saying, I repeat. I give an example, I repeat. So when you repeat, the chances of retention is stronger. First is attention, the second is retention. You want to remember something. You know how to do it first time, but you need to, read the instructions second time. Same is the case. Look over the slides once, second time, you read more material. By the way, Canvas, I put a lot of material, good readings, nice videos as well. So please, guys, when you use Canvas and the modules, there is one page which says resources to explore. It has, links to Harvard Business Review articles. It has link to journal articles. It has short videos. It has some of the chapters have my videos, my lecture videos. So please use Canvas resources. Every module, there is one particular page which talks to resources to explore. You go to resources to explore, you find all these, the slides, the research articles, the HBR Harvard Business Review article, general videos, and there are my lecture videos. When you read and listen to them, when you read again and again, attention, retention, you start remembering. The third thing for learning is your motor reproduction. Can you do something? See, I've seen people who go for the first time and make a presentation. They're very anxious. They're nervous. They don't like presentation. But if you did it repeatedly, motor reproduction, you went in this class, you presented. In the next class, you present. In the third class course, you are actually doing presentation. The fifth time, making a presentation is easy because you're reinforcing. Every time a professor gives you a good grade for your presentation, you become more positive. You have the incentive. You are being rewarded. Whatever you have learned becomes reinforced. So the 4 steps: attention, retention, motor reproduction, that is, you do it, and then you get reinforcement or rewards. This is how we learn in a social setting. Human beings are social animals. We cannot learn in isolation. We learn by interacting. We learn working in teams. And how do we learn? By paying attention. I pay attention to what my dean says. Retention, he sometimes repeats so that I remember more. Motor reproduction, I work on what he's telling me to do. And when I do a good job, he tells me, good job. Prabhakar, good job. Well done. Thank you. And that's reinforcement, reward. So I learn by all these 4 processes: attention, retention, and then motor reproduction by doing it again and again, reinforcement by the recognition that I get. This is what we call social learning. Shaping behavior, how do we change people's behavior? We can change it using these 4 ways. Positive reinforcement. We give them what is something pleasant, praise them, reward them, say good things. That is positive reinforcement. Whenever you do good things, I'll praise you. That means you will try and repeat that. So that's how we are shaping your behavior. Then you have the second way, which is negative reinforcement. When I withdraw, suppose I gave you privileges and you did not do really good. I withdraw those privileges. I terminate those privileges for you. I give you something unpleasant. I take off that position. I create new positions for somebody else to take and take off those positions for you. This is negative reinforcement. The third one is called punishment. You can penalize somebody for doing something. You can suspend people. You can demote people. You can dismiss employees in the organization. That's punishment. Extinction is that this is not a reinforcing, or a behavior, but you make that particular behavior gradually disappear. Whatever behavior an employee is exhibiting, by not reinforcing this particular behavior, you're making the person lose that behavior. He shows some negative behavior, you don't reinforce it, you don't acknowledge it, you don't appreciate it. He'll stop, exhibiting that negative behavior slowly, gradually, and hopefully one day that negative behavior disappears. So this is how we can shape behavior. Either you can positively reinforce by giving them something pleasant. You can negatively reinforce by actually, making sure that you withdraw some privileges, you terminate some privileges. You can penalize somebody by demoting them, or dismissing them. You can penalize them that way. That's punishment. Or by not reinforcing a behavior, you're hoping that a particular behavior will slowly subside, it will disappear. This is how you change people's behavior, possibilities. So managing employees learning, watch what you reward and watch what you do. So you want to reward behaviors that are constructive, that are useful for my company, for the group, for organizational outcomes. Those are the behaviors you want to reward. And of course, you want to set a role model, you want to set an example. So watch what you are doing. So we have some contemporary issues here. Again, it's speaking to the different types of generations. I don't know why they put only Generation Y here. The people who are born between 1982 to 1997. But then you have other generations which are there, like Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, and then the next gen, which is their Alpha. So obviously there are a lot of people who are generations which are there. So you got to understand how these generations are different from each other. Like for example, I belong to, you know, the baby boomers, or I think actually in Generation X, perhaps. I'm like 1972. I'm assuming I'm Generation X. And then later on, my MBA students, say, for example, are Generation Y, born between 1982 to 1997. I think some of you are Generation Y if you're born in 1997, or some of you might be Generation Z who were born after 1997. So in that case, we are dealing with people who are from different generations. Your professor, different generation. Some of your friends, different generation. Other friends, other generation. So when we have generational differences, we got to understand what your expectations are and what your expectations of your employers are. How do you learn? I teach the conventional way of lecturing, not always the best method to do for this generation. And that's why Canvas is a very good tool, because I have a lot of material that you can use. And you might be bored of classroom lectures like this one today. You might go back and say, let me look at some readings, let me watch some videos. Guys, please, on Canvas, there are very good videos that I put. I didn't put too many. There's some very good videos, short videos, 10 minutes, maximum 12, 15 minutes videos, but good ones. Say, for example, I put Leader in You by Anthony Robbins. I can't remember exactly which module, but it's there, embedded. Please watch it. It's a great little video from Anthony Robbins. Anthony Robbins, I've read two of his books, Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within. Two great books. I'll repeat myself, Unlimited Power, and also another book called Awaken the Giant Within, Anthony Robbins. I think both books are available as PDFs online as well, so you can download them. You don't have the patience, the time to read that. I think the easiest way is just watch that video. It's a beautiful video by Anthony Robbins. Nice video, which is inspiring, which talks about personality, how you can motivate yourself, how success can be everyone's, and the world is filled with limitless possibilities. So please watch those videos which are there and resources to explore under each module. So what kind of challenges you might have? The negative behavior could be a challenge. And of course, it's just a survey result, which is here. 10% witnessed rudeness daily. 20% were targets of incivility at least once a week. I've seen that, some of those instances in my life, but I never let it affect me. But as managers, you might have to deal with negative behavior. You need to send them for counseling. You need to take another kind of remedial measures. And obviously you can refer them to disciplinary action if they don't change. So I think that's an important thing. And of course, training and in things like workplace harassment, sexual harassment, and people who are dealing in unethical ways or discriminatory practices. I think all that kind of training is required, and a code of ethics is required for every organization. You need to train people on being ethical, and also training stuff like, say, Title IX, and we go through all those tests every time. I need to take those tests and pass those exams, and that's a mandatory requirement for every faculty, so that we are aware that we should not be discriminatory. We cannot mistreat our students. We should not be ill-treating our own colleagues. So we have everything in place to prevent negative behavior or correct, remedy this kind of negative behavior at the workplace. So that finishes off this chapter. So I can stop share, so that if you have questions, please feel free to ask me. I'll be happy to answer those questions if you have any questions to ask.